Today I have a bunch of books that are fairly easy to read. Some of them might be longer than others, but overall they're not going to give you any twists and turns, but they're going to give you a profound message and you're going to very much enjoy reading them. And this is the list of books. Hopefully you guys can see them all. I'm going to go through them, but people like it when I hold up the books. So the first one is a very short book. This is a book that most people read very early on in their education. It's about 90 pages, I think, somewhere around there. And Animal Farm is interesting because it's so weird that Orwell is able to write something that you can apply to every single authoritarian regime, but it isn't distinct. It doesn't preach. It doesn't try to make you believe a certain thing. It just demonstrates, and that is something that's missed throughout modern media. I feel like when someone's trying to do an allegory for something, when someone's trying to tell a story, it's kind of shoved down your throat instead of done in an artful way, in a masterful way. And what makes Orwell so good at this is that it transcends who he was trying to talk about. Many people theorize he was talking about Stalin. Some of the tactics of the pigs very much seem like Stalin, but at the same time it's something you can apply to more than just him. And that's what makes it a profound statement. That's what makes it something that stands the test of time. It's universality, its ability to transcend the year it was written and be told and retold time and time again and given to the next generation as a warning to what happens when people start having rules, breaking those rules, changing the rules, and subverting the people to think that they are going crazy, subverting the people to basically extract resources without giving them anything in return. And that's really what Animal Farm's about. And it's a book that if you haven't read, very much worth reading. It's very much a book that I feel like everyone should read. I feel like this book is more necessary than 1984. I feel like 1984 is mostly misinterpreted, but I don't think Animal Farm, the message is lost. With that said, the next one is The Catcher in the Rye. The Catcher in the Rye is a very controversial book. I don't really get it. Maybe it's just because at the time it was written, it had curse words. It had a almost anti-establishment message. But what The Catcher in the Rye basically is it's a story about a young man that's growing up, that's hitting that age where he's supposed to be responsible, but he doesn't feel like he can be. He wants to stay a child. He wants to stay innocent. He doesn't want to be thrust out into a world that he doesn't understand. He doesn't want to take on responsibility that doesn't make sense to him. And overall, it's a journey and it's an acceptance and it's almost the failed hero's journey. It's the fact that he's facing the struggle and not rising to the occasion. And it's something that speaks to I feel like my generation and the next few generations especially because as men, as young individuals, I think we don't have rites of passage. We don't have the thing to be raised up in. And I know it's, I know it's not a universal theme like some people can handle it very well, but I feel like my generation more than other generations do not have the capability to face the real world. And I feel like this is a book that resonates especially with this time, especially with current events. And I think it's a very straightforward book and it's something that you probably should read at least once in your life simply because it's such a classic and it is something that's very enjoyable, very fun to read, but has a very good message as well. The next one is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is a tremendous book. If you haven't read this book, I think this is one of the books that everyone should read at some point in their life. Frankenstein it's not like the classic portrayals you see during TV shows when people rip off the Frankenstein's monster. Like Frankenstein is the doctor, he's not the monster, but it's very much different from the tale that you think it would be. It's a tale of human progress, it's a tale of science, it's a tale of should we experiment with nature at the expense of ourselves? Like don't we already have enough? Is it enough to justify, like, do the ends justify the means? Is the scientific progress worth the destruction of mankind? And that's what it really is. I mean, you have the story of Dr. Frankenstein losing everything by the end of the story. You have the story of Frankenstein's monster becoming a wicked beast while he's shunned by society. You have all of these tales, and I think, it's the perfect blend of a great story with great messaging. And when you have a story that can teach such a profound message and you could completely miss it, then you have a good story because Whenever something's in your face, I mean, this is basically what the Odyssey did. The Odyssey was a tale about Greek philosophy and what it meant to be a Greek individual, but it was layered under a tremendous story that inspired people to become the hero of the Odyssey, that inspired the person to become the tactful ruler and the tactful soldier that Odysseus was. But with that said, great book. Very, very short, very, very quick read. It's something that you'll be able to fly through, and it really is. It really is something that stands the test of time. I read this when I was younger. I read it again. I liked it even more the second time I read it. So, if it's something that you've read previously, I urge you to pick it back up because it's something that, ages very, very well. The next book I have is The Trial by Franz Kafka. This is my favorite work by Kafka. It's weird because Kafka was a lawyer himself, and this book is all about the legal system and how it's pulled in all different directions by all of these people with their own interest, with their own status, with their own necks on the line if something goes wrong, and how the legal system is influenced by people and people with egos. And I think it's really a frightful tale, but at the same time, it teaches you a lot about the human experience. It teaches you a lot, like, can we ever have such thing as a fair judgment? And it ends horrifically, but at the same time, you're like, this was a story that said more than just the story. This was a story that kind of spoke to the darker nature of mankind, the darker nature of justice. Like, is there such thing as justice? Is there such thing as a fair trial, as a fair punishment? Like, if you hurt someone, could you ever be hurt back in the right way that would make it so that everything was equal? And that's really what the justice system is faced with, and unfortunately there's not a perfect way to do it. And the trial really is a criticism of this whole system. And it's interesting because the whole point of the story is that this man is arrested and he does not know what he's arrested for, and he's trying to find information and he can't find information. And it deals with the convoluted nature of the legal system and legal representation and how it's not straightforward for the average person. And I really, really love it. I think it's Kafka's best work. I think it's definitely worth reading if you like his style, but very, very profound message and, very haunting message as well. But overall, great book. I think this is his best work. Pick it up. If you've ever read anything by Kafka, if you ever want to read anything by Kafka, this is a great place to start. The next one is James Joyce, A Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man. And this book, put very simply, is James Joyce's self-insert. It's basically about a young man who goes to school and doesn't really fit in. He knows he's a great artist, but he can't quite get the success that he's looking for. He can't quite find his place in this world. And it deals with very, very many issues. It deals with nationalism. It deals with politics. It deals with religion. It deals with puritanical religion. It deals with sexuality in certain regards. James Joyce himself loved prostitutes, but there's chapters of that. But like overall, it's a story about a young man growing up and finding his place through art, finding his purpose through art, and that's really the genesis of the story. That James Joyce cannot find himself in the world, but what he finds is he finds that through expression of his art, he finds himself. And to me, that's such a profound message because I think art is the one way that you can express the inexpressible, that you could find yourself in a world that is so chaotic, that you could find the parts of yourselves that you've always been looking for. And, this is something that Osho said, this is something that Freud believed as well, but creative expression truly is the greatest gift we're given, and it's something that when embraced can bring you from a life of despair to a life of happiness. But with that said, very good book. It's not as confusing as the rest of James Joyce's works. It's pretty straightforward. There might be some references in here that you don't get, but if you're feeling yourself confused with the history of Ireland, if you feel yourself confused with the events going on, just pull up ChatGPT and ask it the references, just ask the questions. But overall, great book. I had a lot of fun reading this book, and it's something that I feel like I can appreciate because it's the same writing style as James Joyce's other works, but it's very easy to read in comparison to his other works. The next one is The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. This is one of my favorite books. It's a very, very short book, but it's written in the form of poetry, so it might be a little difficult to read. But it's not difficult in the sense of content. It's difficult in the sense of, like, if you're not really well-versed in poetry, it might be a challenge at first, but it's a book with timeless quotes. It's a book with timeless wisdom. And the overall point of the book is that this prophet is leaving his city, and he offers wisdom one last time, and the crowd asks him various questions. And through the form of the prophet, through the man that's speaking, Khalil Gibran gives his life philosophy, and it's one that's inspiring, it's one that's uplifting, and it's one that you will find a deep meaning in and a deep sense of purpose. When you read the prophet, you read something that is beyond normal literature. You read something that speaks to your soul, and to find that in a book that's so short is something that I've always loved, and it's the reason why I will always suggest the prophet. Please pick this up if you've never read Khalil Gibran. It's some of the greatest poetry you'll ever read. But with that said, we get into the last book. The last book is The Plague by Albert Camus. And The Plague is interesting. I'm pretty sure it had a big uptick in sales a few years ago. I think you guys know why, with the global things going on. And it's super interesting that Camus was able to capture the fear, the trepidation, the responses of various different individuals, and how people were profiteering off of the plague, how people were, living in fear, how people stepped up and became heroes, how communities came together, how people, found hope in the greatest of despair. And it really is a testament to what happens when society is thrown up on its head. What happens when the world becomes something completely different than what we thought it was? What happens when the layers and the levels of society begin to be thrown in the air and we have to adjust to a whole new way of life? And I think it's a very profound book, and it's a very interesting book, and it speaks to a element of human nature that is unlike anything that we think of in our normal day-to-day lives. Some people theorize this is what Camus was writing about in terms of how he experienced the war, because he was in France during the time of the occupation during the 40s, and he said adamantly that this wasn't that, but I think he did draw from that experience in a certain sense, and I think it did add to his ability to portray the fear, the trepidation, the heroic nature that sprung out of some individuals, but overall the triumph at the end of it all. And I think it's a very, very good book. I can't remember how many pages it is, 330-ish pages, but it's something that you'll very much enjoy reading. Has a profound statement on the human experience. And with that said, we went through however many books. I did not count them at the beginning, but these are all books that I think if you read, you're going to have a really fun time reading, and you're going to take something away from it. That's what I like to focus most of my reading on, like something that can teach me something that can keep me entertained, yet teach me a experience that I have not yet seen, or teach me a new way to look at experiences. So with that said, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. I will catch you in the next one.